Hi.
Hi.
We're back again this week after a little vacation. Milagros and I have been having really busy lives. I just actually got back from Guatemala. I was working with the Ties program the past couple weeks. This week we're going to talk about Adoptee Community, Peruvian Adoptee Community, and like the general Adoptee communities. Let's jump in.
Being in London, my initiation into the adoptee community is kind of relatively recent. I mean, I've only met my first adoptee in 2007 or 8. 2007, yes.
So you mean like anyone ever that was adopted, or do you mean like Peruvian adoptee?
I'm talking about an adoptee, a British intercountry or domestic adoptee.
Wow.
I was first introduced in 2007, so I spent all of my life in London. I lived in the centre of London, and I never met an adoptee before. I'd never read about adults' versions of what their experiences were like being adopted, domestic, and I'd never heard the word transracial, transnational, or intercountry. I'd never really heard that because I wasn't really involved in adoption. I mean, I obviously did my adoption journey, but it was my own personal journey, and I didn't have any terms to call myself.
Right.
I was just
you
a
just
Peruvian
knew what
adoptee.
your experience was, yeah.
And I didn't know any of the terminology, so I was just a Peruvian adoptee living in London. That's how I termed myself.
Yeah.
So and then I began to Google things within London. I'm in England. I stumbled upon a group, and I went to a meeting. And I was kind of nervous to meet an adoptee. It was kind of a big moment. There wasn't a lot of us, but it was funny because they're all around my age, and
oh really?
And most of them were domestic adoptees. And then the funny thing, apart from that, was there weren't many British adoptees. They'd come from Canada, they'd come from Sweden, so they were living in London, but they weren't really had a British adoption sort of experience. So I felt like either they were domestic or they were Europeans living in London, and then there was kind of me. So I felt like, oh wow, this is London, having different experiences. That's how I was introduced to my first experience. It was really interesting to meet other adoptees. We used to have meet up once a year or and then I had a good friend who was Canadian but Haitian. I still have her, she's still my friend. And then she was a social worker, but she's a social worker in London, but she's Canadian but Haitian. And I thought she was super interesting, and she was very much obviously involved in the adoption community within London. And then she introduced me to the organisation, which is the only organisation in London that deals with intercountry adoption. So I was introduced to them, and that's how it kind of all began, my interest in adoption, I think. So around 2007 to 2009 was kind of where I learnt more. But I really think that it wasn't until I met the Peruvian adoption community where my life kind of changed, I think.
Really?
Yeah. I think when you meet other adoptees, well, particularly because I'm Peruvian, other Peruvian adoptees, things become more specific.
Definitely.
And you can relate more to each other's experiences.
Yeah.
And because I'd never met a Latin American adoptee, well, that was British, I think, in London, I soon began to learn from other people's experiences of what it was like being a Peruvian adoptee in different countries. And that was super, super interesting. So around 2010, 2011 is when I fully became immersed in the Peruvian
adoptee. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I have not really turned back since then. So when I met my Peruvian adoptees, our Peruvian adoptees, and it first began with the Dutch adoptee community, which was kind of astounding to me to find there were so many Peruvian adoptees in Holland.
Yeah.
I was really, really shocked and surprised. I just couldn't see the connection between Holland, and I still even today don't really understand why so many ended up there.
I don't know either.
But it was my first introduction, and as soon as I met one, I was introduced to the next, and it was like a ball effect.
Was it through the internet, or how did that happen?
This is what happened. I read a book called Circulation of Children by Jean Leanweaver, and I recommend all Peruvian adoptees to read that because it really gives an insight to it's called Circulation of How Peruvian the Culture is of Bringing Up and Raising a Child, and it talked about intercountry adoption, and it was funny because they mentioned an orphanage that I'd been to.
Oh wow!
My first experience in Peru was with this orphanage. It's called Juan Pablo II in Ayacucho, in Huanta, and it's basically talking about all the orphanages in Ayacucho, and they were looking about how the orphanages started and why they started and how they've increased each year and why the reason for it and how it's a necessity within that region why it was. Anyway, so they had and then they mentioned a girl who is a Peruvian adoptee who opened up her own organisation. So I googled her, and then she came up on Facebook, and then I contacted her, and then she led me to another person, and it kind of led like that. It was all through reading that book that I realized. Then it was just the Dutch Peruvian community for a long time. For 6 months I was engaging. And then I went to Peru, and that's when I found your organisation.
Yeah, how did you find Nuestra, Herencia?
You found me.
Is that how it happened? How did I find you?
Well, you found me because a video was posted on YouTube about me wanting to search for my birth mum.
Okay.
You said, "Oh, our community supports you." I was like, "Okay, where are you?" So, and the American adoption community, opened up to me. And then when my video was published, I got a request from France and several other countries.
Oh wow!
So
on Facebook.
It's basically European countries.
Yeah.
And adoptees. So that's how the adoption community was introduced to me in various forms with different ways. And then it was been like a domino effect. I realized that we don't have a large Peruvian adoptee community in this country, and so I always felt like, for me it was really a necessity for me to communicate with the other Peruvian adoptees, because it's just not the same to communicate with other adoptees, because I think I was at the stage of my adoption journey that I had been to Peru several times, so it wasn't meeting other adopters who were going back. It wasn't the stage that I was at. I was more introduced to how a person was adapting to their culture, to their birth culture, going back. Every culture is different, and I think I had particular questions and experiences that I had in Peru. I wanted specific experiences so I could relate to.
Yeah.
And so when I met the Peruvian community, I was able to say, "So how do you feel about this? How do you feel about going to these places? How do you feel?"
You're kind of able to get into a little bit deeper.
Yeah, get into discussion, not just about what's adoption for you, or how do you feel about this? And also the searching was a big thing for me. How do you go about searching? So that's really was important to hear Peruvian adoptees' experiences and how they went about searching, and it gave me hope. I think the one thing that gave me hope prior to 2011 was hope, because I had tried several times and with no luck, but I was hearing loads of stories. Huh?
You tried several times to do your birth family search?
Yeah, birth family search, and I had several stories of Dutch adoptees who had found their families, and I was like, this gives me hope.
Yeah.
It gave me hope because I had never met a Peruvian adoptee who'd found their family.
Right.
Yet I was, I was hearing this person. I mean, it looked like the whole of Holland, Peru. It looked like everyone in Holland who were adoptees from Peru had found their families.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
And
that also is kind of remarkable. I mean, that's not super common, I don't think.
And also, they went back as a whole group. I think it was about 30, 40 of them.
Really?
Yeah, they went back.
All the adoptees? That's crazy.
Yeah. In 1999, there's a photo of them.
Aww.
When they were 19 and 20.
How cute is that?
To Peru.
Where did they stay?
This was extraordinary for me because I'd always gone back by myself.
Yeah, totally.
And I've never would have thought of going back with some other adoptees because I didn't know where they were and I didn't know there were loads of us.
Right.
So this whole notion of an adoption, the whole word adoption community, seriously to God, is something really, I'm trying to wow, it's been going on for ages.
Yeah.
Because in London, when it comes to adoption, there isn't really much of a community.
Yeah.
That means you're literally by yourself. You're literally by yourself.
Because I know in the past videos, you talked about, you're like usually the only Latina at work or school, like the only brown face that you saw. And
Yeah.
then apart from that, like underneath, obviously, like you knowing you're an adoptee and then knowing that like there's no other adoptees around either, then that's like a whole nother level of like feeling
Yeah, like
alone.
being the Peruvian face and plus being the only adoptee and plus being the only intercountry adoptee in our
Yeah.
environments. It's a kind of really deep and it's kind of really unique.
Yeah.
And it's just been a low, it's been like, it's obviously, on the one hand, it's knowing an adoption community exists now. I feel like I can share my experiences and I can relate to them, but for a long time, it's just been me and like, not say myself, but me and my family, but they're not going to Peru with me. It's kind of been just me and myself. And so, like, it's just been me and myself for
You're like your own adoptee community.
my own adopted. And people used to say to me, not I'm obsessed about my adoption, but I was pretty obsessed with my adoption in a
I would
good
think
way.
that you would be obsessed with it because if you're like have no one else to talk about it with, or like
Yeah.
it's not like something that's like normal or around, like yeah, you're gonna think about it.
They said, "Should I tell you my story?" Because there was no one to tell. Like
Yeah.
I felt like my story was totally unique because no one would have the same story as me. So it was literally be a joking like commentary, like wherever I used to be, I used to tell people I was adopted and my story because it was just because I'm like.
You're like dying to get it out.
Because there's no other way.
Yeah.
And like people were super interested in that. I've never had a negative experience. They've always supported me.
That's cool.
And they always used to think I'm really strong. Like back then I was like, strong about what? Now knowing everything now, I realise, yeah, I was pretty strong. Right about that. But like, yeah, totally. Like, so like I had to do everything, go back by myself without any knowledge, without knowing anything, going back, going again, doing this, going here, like with no book, no nothing, like no experience. I never heard about anyone going back before, never heard about anyone like whatever for a long time, like long. So yeah, I never heard of the adoption community, like yeah.
So foreign to you, yeah.
So it's becoming like it's only within the last year I say like only 2010, 11, what 2010, only the last year and a half, 2 years nearly, that I feel like I've got an adoption community. Like I understand the meaning of an adoption community now. I really do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel it now.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think it's really interesting that you say that because I mean I think the adoption community has gotten a lot bigger in some ways because of the fact that like yeah, like I'm like you, like now I know adoptees all over the world, you know, not just in my hometown, not just like, you know, even in my state or my county, like I know all over the states, all over the world. And the reason that we can stay connected and the reason that we like have like a community, like you said, you know, when you first found our group, you're like, well, where are you? It's kind of like we're everywhere, but we're all in the same place because we're all on the internet. You know what I mean? Like that's what keeps us all together. I think now that we're all on the internet because it's not like we have our own country or like, you know what I mean? Like adoptee country or like, you know, adoptee town. Our like homeland is like with each other wherever we're all at. And right now we're all on the internet.
True. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, without this, but even though the internet has existed for X amount of years, and I never bothered to search adoption whatever until that Madonna thing, because I didn't know the terminologies, and I also didn't know about anything else. I didn't know. It was so far from my mind, you know. It makes me laugh now because I've Googled many things, but not like adoption community or Peruvian adoption.
You probably didn't even think about it like in that sense.
Didn't even think about it, no, until that Madonna thing when suddenly everyone started talking about inter-country adoption. So I used to Google inter-country adoption.
Oh, wow.
Didn't know what that meant kind of knew, but I didn't really.
Yeah.
But all these terminology, like being transracial, being like even like transnational, all these
transnational,
and knowing that adoption was a big thing in your life. Like I knew it was for me, but actually being confirmed that it's actually a big part of your life if you're an adoptee.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like funny, but she confirmed it to me.
Yeah. No, but that's good though.
I felt like for a long time I had a lot of missing information.
Yeah.
I just thought it was me being, well, I'm just not there yet. And I didn't realize of course I wasn't there kind of thing. Like, of course I wouldn't have known this.
Yeah.
So now I kind of understand. But definitely it's like a family to me. It's a different type of family, obviously, but it's a family where I feel like it's a family that understands what we're experiencing, and you don't have to explain everything. And so when I meet an adoptee, we introduce ourselves. Like when I met you, I didn't know what I did, but I think I wrote you an email, and I think I said, "Oh, this is what I'm at and what I'm doing," and then you wrote back, and then I think we kind of conversed like that. And I think in the second, or not even, I don't know, remember, but like telling you the whole life story, my whole life story. So it was really quick connection.
Yeah.
We have all types of different friendships. And I think for me, to have friends who can connect in that particular way, having not had friends who can really relate to that, has been such a bonus for me. And it's actually helped me develop in my adoption journey. And I think things would have been much more faster if I had conversations when I was 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. If I had those conversations with somebody at around ages or from the beginning,
you might have like started thinking about it or developing your thoughts about it in a different way.
I would have been able to understand. First, I've understood that what an adoptee has to go through. So, for example, if I met a younger adoptee, I would say, "Well, this is what you need. This is what X, Y, and Z. This is how it kind of not always works, but this is the kind of experiences you have." But when you don't have anybody who has experienced it all, or experienced some of it, or experienced what you need to experience in each stage, then you're kind of like left, what's next? So you're really literally guiding your own self.
And that's really hard, because it's something that's like, it's so uncharted, like, it's so uncharted.
It's so uncharted, and it's literally...
I think it's uncharted because I feel like people don't understand, like, they think like, oh, well, you were adopted, and like, that's it, like, that's the end. But it doesn't work like that.
It's like when people meet me, they realize it doesn't work like that, because I explain A, B, and C, and D, like the actual, like, what I have to do to have done this to get there.
Yeah. That's why the community is so important, because it's like we're all helping each other, I feel like, kind of like navigate our feelings and like our decisions, you know, regarding our adoption experiences and our birth family travel and just like general like life experiences somehow. I don't know, I kind of feel like at times it's better to like ask an adoptee than like ask anyone else, you know, about it, because you know what's all tied up in your decision. They just know like where you're coming from, you know.
Totally, like I totally agree with that. It's also nice to support other people, because now I feel like I'm an older, experienced adoptee. You're an adult adoptee.
You're a graduated adoptee, no?
Graduated adoptee. I've done the different tasks and the tests. I've come through it all, and I feel like I'm an older adoptee, and it's good now to help others in their journeys. And I'd rather give more information than less information. But at least I know the reality of it all.
I think that's it. I think that's exactly it, is that there's a sense of like when you talk to another adoptee, they're going to tell you like what's up. Whereas if you talk to like an adoption agency or like another company, sometimes other people want to sugarcoat it, or they're not going to be completely realistic or real about this experience. Whereas like an adoptee is going to be like, no, this is like the real deal. Like, listen here, you know, like this is how it goes down.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I don't really have much experience with other organizations in adoption or other providers, or I don't know what you call them. I only have my experience as being in adoption is being only with adoptees. Well, apart from this organization called Intercountry Adoption Association in London, which I'm not sure what it does exactly, but I've done a few things with them, but it's my experiences, that's it. So I didn't go there for any support or anything. I just provided my experiences.
Right.
So, but if I want to take from anything, I'll take from other adoptees. Like, I wouldn't know where to go if I had to take from London.
It's so funny because, I mean, my adoption experience and my adoptee community experience was like so different, because I'm trying to think of like the first time, you know exactly when you met your first like adoptee in general. I'm trying to think of like when. I think it was when I was a baby. I think the first adoptee I met was my older brother. when I was adopted and my mom found out that I had an older brother, you know, she got in contact with his family, and then I went to go visit him when I was probably 3 years old. And so that he's the first adoptee I met. He was adopted by another family. And then after that, I think probably the next adoptees I met would be in elementary school. I went to this different like alternative education school, I guess you would say. And so it kind of attracted a lot of like liberal type parents and, you know, like progressive minded thinking people or whatever. And there was like a domestic adoptee that was my friend. I knew another girl that was adopted from Ethiopia, another girl from India, a handful of people from like Korea and China. And then I ended up meeting two girls. They moved to my school, moved to our hometown when they were like maybe in 4th grade or 3rd grade. And their names are Lydia and Nelia, and they're like still my very best friends. And they were adopted from Peru, so we got really close. And then through them, I think my mom found out from their parents that they went to this Peruvian culture camp, and it was for Peruvian adoptees specifically, and it was a focus on getting Peruvian adoptees to know their roots and like know where they come from, and then of course like being around other young adoptees, and their parents could be around other Peruvian adoptee parents. And it was started by this woman, Minda, and she had adopted a baby from Peru. And so they started it when she was like a baby, and I think the earliest pictures they have are like all the children were like literally babies, like they were literally toddlers. And they started that, and I think that was like back in 93 or something. And I started going when I was probably like maybe 8 or so. I went every single summer. They had like a little reunion every summer, and I got my pictures out. This is us when we were children. I hope Lydia and Nelia aren't mad. I'm showing this. There's me. There's Nelia. There's me. There's Lydia. There's Nelia. And this is like a little campsite that we would like hang out at. And we just spend like a weekend together. We would do little activities. Anthony, one of our friends, is raising the Peruvian flag, and we'd sing the Peruvian national anthem. When we got older, they brought in like counselors that were Peruvians that were living in the States. There are a lot of people from the Bay Area that were there. Like everybody was like in and around San Francisco. It was called Nuestra, Herencia. Now we call ourselves Nuestra, Herencia Peruvian Adoptees because we're not a culture camp anymore. We definitely, as we got older, it becomes less about the culture and like let's talk about what it's like to be adopted and be Peruvian, you know, and like let's just have the chance to hang out, you know, and be young adults together. And then before that, I was working with my adoption agency, and oh yeah, here's some of my pictures. All of our parents, which are like all white and old. It was a really good experience. Here's all of us when we were like kids. Our group picture. There used to be so many of us. But as we got older, like everybody moved away, and I don't know, like just things changed. So there's still like a good group of us that still get together. We're actually getting together in a couple weekends at the end of July, so that'll be really fun. We're going camping. It was just kind of like part of my life, was being around other adoptees and, you know, hanging out, learning about my culture and things like that. And then as I got older, I was like you, I was looking for other people to like ask questions about what it's like to live in your birth country, you know, or what it's like when you reunite with your birth family and you start to have a relationship with them, or, you know, what happens when you find out secrets about your family that you didn't know were there before, you know, or different things like that. You know, how do you maintain good boundaries? You know, how do you take care of yourself? Just all those little things. That's definitely when I started like expanding my adoptee network. And so I started working with Spence Chapin, and I did mentoring for like their teens and for their elementary school kids. I found that the Ties program, which is Adoptive Family Travel, and Becca Piper, who's their director and co-founder, and started working with them, doing birth country travel back. I've done it with Cambodian adoptees, Vietnamese adoptees, and now Guatemalan adoptees. And I started working with Holt Camp, which is through Holt International. Holt adoptee camps go all over the States, and they basically do a summer camp experience, but specifically for adoptees. A lot of the people in the Midwest, I found, they had major depth to their adoption experience. Outside of camps, they hadn't met any other adoptees. You know, they didn't like really know how to talk about adoption or their own adoption experience. There was a lot of like sadness and like pain. It was really interesting being in that part of that in the world, you know, not just being a participant, but like you said, kind of being someone that's gone through it. But I'm fresh off of a trip with the Ties program and working with the Guatemalan adoptees in Guatemala. Actually experienced a birth family reunion, and this one was really, really unique and interesting. And like all the experiences are. But I think it really speaks to how important it is for other adoptees to connect with each other, especially if you feel like, you're like in your position where you don't have any support, or it's not like a normal thing, to be around adoptees a lot, or when you go through a life-changing experience, like being in your birth country for the first time, or doing your birth family reunion for the first time, or even searching for the first time, because this girl that went through this experience, I think both of us are really glad that we were there for each other. For me, it was definitely a nice chance for me to reflect like on my own personal reunion story. And then for her, she really was like, I didn't know anyone else like that's gone through this experience, and her story was kind of similar to mine in terms of her family origins. So we like talked about all that, and you just feel comfortable instantly, and there's like a sense of trust there, because these experiences are so unique that no one else like can typically understand that, if they've not grown up in that situation. And even parents of adoptees all the time can't really relate, or can't. And I think sometimes their adoptee children like don't really want to relate with them. They don't want to like share that with them quite yet. It takes some time, I think, and it depends on the person, obviously. But in my experience, it seems to be easier and more natural talking with other adoptees than with your parents or your close friends or like anyone else. If you're another adoptee, whether you're a Peruvian adoptee or not, connect with us. Find us on Facebook. Leave comments. Reach out to us. And anyone else that's like an adoptee, I think it's okay to ask questions when you're another adoptee.
Yeah.
That's the safest person to ask a question to, especially if they know that you were adopted, and that they were adopted. For adoptive parents, make sure you find the other adoptive families and other adoptees in your area or on the internet or whatever it may be for your kids and yourself to connect to, because I think you're missing out on a great resource for yourself personally, and also that's just something that your kids are going to need. And it doesn't have to be, let's talk about, all of our adoption issues all the time. It's just nice hanging out with someone else that has a similar experience to you. Sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes that's enough.
Meeting other adopters, I think it doesn't cost anything. And sometimes, like, some people go counselling, I don't know, because, if you don't have any major issues and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just great to chat with other adoptees. It doesn't cost anything. And, like, I haven't met you, but yet we have a really strong friendship.
Yeah.
It's not really bizarre, because I must admit, before I entered this adoption community thing, I hadn't really engaged in the internet in this particular way. I'd never met strangers, or I'd never met, this is not really what I do. But with adoption community, I kind of like took it on a bit. You kind of
throw all that conventional stuff out the window.
In the bin. Like, I thought, oh no, it kind of ran I don't know why, because I'm very, like, careful on everything.
Yeah.
I'm really careful. And then suddenly the adoption community opened up, and I was like, I kind of just opened up. And it's really weird, because I never thought I would do it. Yeah. It's not the way I would have imagined.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad I did, because I've met great people. And the great thing about this is that having had conversations with certain friends, I've actually met them. So sometimes I've met them in Peru. I've met them also in France. Okay. And yeah, when I went to France once, I met other French Peruvian adoptees. And so what it's nice is to know that you've got friends abroad, and then when you meet each other, it's kind of a different edge to the friendship kind of thing. And it's nice to especially meeting Peruvian adoptees in Peru. That's totally, like, that's really so cool. Funny. It's really cool. Yeah. It's really, really funny, because this is where your adoption journey is. When you go to Peru, it's so directly that you're adopted, and you're able to share experiences whilst you're in Peru. And that's totally unique. So it's good to have those contacts. And then you never know when you're going to meet them. It's nice to have and build a friendship. So definitely, I felt like I've had really different experiences with my Peruvian adoptees.
Yeah, for sure.
So, greatly.
I would definitely say that, with the people that I grew up with, going to Peruvian culture camp, and now, Peruvian adoptee reunions, I see these people probably once a year, most of them. Sometimes I see them outside, we do little road trips or whatever. We meet up in different places. But for all, they're fighting. For all of the, all the times that we've known each other, only seeing each other once a year or a couple times a year, sometimes keeping in touch, through the phone or whatever, through email, Facebook. I feel the same way. Like, these people are my family, they're so close to me. We've just shared different experiences growing up together. We've seen each other, like, at different states, of ourselves and making different mistakes, being with certain people. And it's almost like the closest thing that you can get to a blood relationship before actually having your actual, like, biological relationship. The manifestation of the adoptee community is right here between us. This is why we're having these conversations. We definitely hope you guys are enjoying them. Next week, we are going to be talking about, does our journey ever end? Does these conversations get answered? Are they final? If you guys have any comments or questions, of course, let us know. You can leave them in the comments area or get in touch with us, on Facebook or whatever. So, yeah.
That's it. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, doggy.
She's so crazy. This dog is killing me.